I was doing my
All
exercise.
right. Welcome, everybody. We are live. Sorry we're late. We had a couple little glitches with the tech, and now here we are. So I just want to welcome everyone. We're here to talk about what about accidents? So here we are trying to get this thing started. You would think it's a big old accident. Anyways, so the title is What About Accidents? And you know, nothing ever happens to anyone accidentally. Accidents are not accidental, nor are illnesses or other apparent difficulties accidental, nor is it an accident that John Jones is one's friend on Monday but passes out of your experience on Tuesday, or that Mary Smith is somebody's friend on Monday and remains that same friend, somebody's friend on Tuesday. So all human experiences, so-called, are the language or translation of divine facts, and therefore must be identified with principle, not with personal sense. So remember, we live our friend as the idea of God and not as material personality. Living the idea of the allness of good, the concept of friend, changes. So, Betty, I want to welcome you to the call and see if you have anything else you want to say about any of that intro.
Well, I don't have anything particularly to say about it, but I think it's important that we don't just assign something to, oh, it's an accident and pay no attention, because there are no accidents. Everything is somehow you are being responsible when you understand that nothing occurs by chance, that you grow the world you walk through and constitute that world out of who you're being.
Right.
So, literally, there are no accidents. You have going on in your daily experience exactly what you need to move you along whatever pathway you're walking. So, you pay attention rather than ignore it.
All right. So, no matter how much you might think you're free to do this or that according to your own plan, and will choose your friends, nothing that you seem to do, even walking to the station to take a train or going to a hospital, is chance or according to your own will, your own election. So, talk about that a little more.
Well, the world I walk through is of my own making. So all of that would be true. If I make the world I walk through, then it wouldn't be by chance, whether I'm going on a train or going to the hospital or whatever else. It's all, and the other thing to remember about it is that every event is a function of principle, and it has value for you. So you don't ignore anything. You just say, oh, interesting. I don't know why it looks that way, but on we go. And you allow it to be.
Right. Right. Okay. Well, in that, at first I was sitting here and I'm thinking about it and I'm going, well, that sounds a lot like you're saying there is no free will. But really what you're saying is who you are generates all of what the look is. Yep. And if that's what's so, then it's all generated out of your own being. And this thing we call man or Kim or Betty is just a reflection of the God idea showing up. So why would we have this or Betty have free will?
Well, because Betty doesn't have anything to do with what's going on.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. That which sits in a chair doesn't think.
That's right.
So there's, and I did get that when you were saying that, because I kept saying, well, this sounds a lot like there's no free will. And then when you said, it's all principle, it's that you are the world you walk through. And when you said that, I was like, oh my God, okay, I get it. That's, there would be nothing but your generative being, divinity shaping all that you see. And it's from your own the beingness of you that has the look be the look and the only way you can see it.
That's right. And it will always be in the language of your discernment.
Right.
So you don't know what it would look like. I have no way to predict what it would look like for you. But for me, it's exactly what I demand in the way of language.
Yeah,
So I shouldn't
exactly.
complain about it either. I should look at it and say, oh, okay, let's look for the value.
Right. Right.
Yeah. So
And that it gives
you
you,
may
it
not,
actually opens up that whole idea, because we're so tied into the fact that Kim or Betty, the look, is somehow in charge.
yeah, you really think you're running the show, but you're kidding yourself.
Right. Because it's being that then shows up as Kim or Betty or the look. And only way it can show up to show you what you're believing right now.
Yep. Right on.
Okay. Very cool. All right. So we're looking at Margaret's book, Perfection is Gained Because Perfection Is. And we start on page 58 with this quote: in reality, man is the willed of God, as thinking or thought, the evidence of mind's creativity.
Yeah. And I always, for a long time now, have substituted the God idea for the word God, because it makes it sound like there is some entity called God that's doing something with me or for me or about me. And that's not true. The God idea sources this thing called Betty.
Yeah.
It's the language for me right now of discovering myself. So on we go.
Very good. And then just for more conversation, if you believe this, then your interpretation of truth becomes truth itself, interpreted to itself. And you no longer will seem to be what you are not. The material personality. Yeah, the material personality that rushes hither and yon, willful, confused, controlled, and fearful, a suiciding mortal. But you will become the poised personality, which is the willed of God, or the God idea, and which you are divinely.
Yep.
Do you know where that quote came from?
Yeah, it came from Margaret's book, Perfection is Gained Because Perfection Is.
Okay.
I didn't put it down, did I?
No, but I was just curious if that was from that book. So awesome. Excellent. Yep. Anything more you want to say about it? That was really a mouthful to read.
Yeah, I know.
Because if you believe in reality, man is the willed of the God idea as thinking or thought, the evidence, if you believe that man is the evidence of mind's creativity, well, then your interpretation of truth becomes truth itself, interpreted to itself.
Yep.
And you no longer will seem to be what you are not.
That's right. The material personality.
Okay.
Yep. Got it.
All right. So in other words, the knowing this and living true to this actually frees you up.
That's right.
It removes the drama.
Yep.
I got it. Okay, cool. All right.
So then, removing the drama, you cease to be a victim.
Right, exactly.
Yep.
In Science and Health on page 214, line 29, Mary Baker Eddy wrote, neither age nor accident can interfere with the senses of soul, and there are no other real senses.
Yeah, so you yourself are never interfered with.
Right.
You may not see it, you may not believe it, you may not access it, but that's what's going on all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then in Mind is the Athlete on page 111, you wrote, in proportion to our ability to leave the language alone, our experience of living will be less traumatic, less catastrophic.
Yep.
And that's because we don't attach to it. We don't attribute cause and get all our feathers in a ruffle.
Yeah, and I also wrote, in fact, permissively allowed to be, the language world will constantly appear, disappear, and reappear without a hitch or a victim. Living is an inside job entirely designed by you.
Yep.
So I
Yeah.
am the source of my joy and my misery, either way
Right.
you look at it.
Right.
Yep.
So pay attention to what you're
Yep.
believing.
Yep.
Okay. And on page 59 in Perfection is Gained Because Perfection Is, Margaret Laird wrote, truth is purgative in its action, forcing the concept of existence as physical to give up. Purgative equal cleansing.
Yeah. I just put that down because it's not an easy definition to get in your mind.
Yes.
So the truth is a cleansing. It's a purgative in its action. And what that does is force the concept of existence to give itself up.
Right.
Yep.
Got it. Because the concept of existence isn't true.
Yep.
And then in Science and Health, Mary Baker Eddy said it this way on 397, starting on line 12. When an accident happens, you think or exclaim, I am hurt. Your thought is more powerful than your words, more powerful than the accident itself to make the injury real.
Yep. So if we want to give up the belief that mind is, even temporarily, compressed within the skull, and you'll quickly become more manly or womanly. Now you will demand yourself and your maker better than before. You will understand, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Very good. Okay. And then you say again on page 111 in Mind is the Athlete, when the facts are clear, walking on unimpressed by appearances becomes the natural way of wisdom.
Yep.
And that's isn't that goes back to what I think Margaret said about treat the two imposters just the same?
Yep.
So you might think, oh boy, this is great. Look what just happened. And it's all exciting. And then you got the other side of that, which is like, darn it, why does this always happen to me? And those are the two. It's like either end of the paradox, right?
Yep.
Okay. Anything more on that?
No.
All right. We're cruising. On page 66 of Perfection is Gained Because Perfection Is, Margaret Laird wrote, good is appearing because only good is, and is reflected in whatever language will best convey the idea of good to the one whose language it is.
Yep. So the thing is, you have language and you classify it as good, bad, right, wrong, happy, unhappy, miserable, joyful, etc. But you're the one that gives the meaning, because the fact is that only good is present ever. There is no other reality. So you make it up as you go, and then you live what you make up because that's what you believe. So you're your own victim.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. But while we don't believe that, or while we're not seeing that truth, we don't think that way.
We don't even recognize that we're doing that to ourselves.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's like blind to it. In Science and Health, Mary Baker Eddy wrote on page 561, starting on line 16, John saw the human and divine coincidence shown in the man Jesus as divinity embracing humanity in life and its demonstration.
Mm-hmm.
And then she goes on with, in divine revelation, material and corporeal selfhood disappear, and the spiritual idea is understood.
Yep. And it's interesting to read the quote saying John saw the human divine coincidence. She didn't say she saw it.
Right.
She's giving you an example. And you see it all the time, but you think somebody else wrote it. You don't think that you're the one generating your good. every day, every minute,
Right.
because there's no other reality outside of the being you right now.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. And then in Mind is the Athlete on page 112, you wrote, self-discovery has you focus on the reality of the presence that you are rather than the shifting view of that presence.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a presence like a being is what that's saying. And that being is what generates the whole thing rather than the shifting view of the personality called Kim right here or Betty.
But the shifting language will always be present.
Right, because it's appear, disappear, reappear, appear, disappear, reappear all the time, forever and ever and ever.
Yeah, and your language is always your mode of comprehension.
Right.
So you are generating that for yourself all the time. And what's going on is reality present, and it's always whole, it's always perfect, it's always joyous, free, complete, all of that. But we don't see it that way because we don't call it forth that way. And we can if we want to. So this is a wake up call. It's like saying,
because we get attached to, or we make stuff mean things when things don't fit our pictures.
Yeah, or we don't realize
right. And then we get preoccupied with oh dear.
Yep.
And that seems to guide the show until we can realize that it's all perfection showing up the only way it can.
Yeah, and it's been a valuable lesson for me in having a physical problem here in the last month or so, because it forces me to take a look. There isn't anybody out there that's going to fix anything for me, because there isn't anything out there, not because they wouldn't fix it if they could, but there's nothing out there. I am all, says Mary Baker Eddy, and a knowledge of aught beside myself is impossible. So I have to mind myself. I have to say, hey, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do this. And then I'll walk a different path.
Right.
And then something else will come up and I'll say, nope, not going that way. I'll go this way. And I keep going. And something else comes up and I say, nope, this way. But it's always up to me. And once I got that clear, I stopped being such a victim of a physical problem. And I thought, well, if you're going to do that, go ahead and look like that. But I'm going to go ahead and mind my business and do my thing.
Right. But there's also this knowing of, when you're being responsible, when you're clear about being, your world can show up with a suggestion and you say, why, thank you. Because you're clear that that world is your own divinity showing up.
Or you could use Margaret's expression and say, that's the way it looks. That's not the way it is.
Right. Right. But I'm just saying that all kinds of things show up around you. Say that again.
Just reminding that I'm the one in charge.
Yeah.
That's why I speak up and say, wait a minute. It can go on forever if it wants to, but I'm not going to live it. I'm going to live myself the best way I know how and walk on. Right. And as you walk on, the path opens up and answers show up, solutions show up, new ideas you never heard of show up, and things become available that you never heard of before, because you finally are open to, well, reality is present. Let's see what that's all about.
Right.
And you let go of all the stuff that it seems to be about and just leave it alone. Because the more you try to fix it, the more you get involved with the picture and become its victim. Right. So you can't fix it. Just leave it alone.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the key, but when you're living from that spot, that you're distinguishing, it's not, there is no other out there. So whatever shows up in your world, you can be open to or what have you, but you know that you're going to do exactly what you need to do.
You can trust it. That's true.
Yeah.
You can trust that you will do exactly what you need to do for where you are and what you're up to.
Right. Okay.
And if it looks miserable, you look at it and you say, oh, okay, it looks miserable.
Right.
Is this the only way I can walk? If it is, let's get going. If it isn't,
Right.
let's walk over here.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Okay. And then standing at 0, allowing language to be, you bring nothing or no concept to any given situation.
Yep. And standing in 0 is standing humanly, is standing with no attachment or attention on the look of things.
Mm-hmm.
No
Right.
attachment to it. It can come and go. It doesn't have anything in me, and no requirement for the picture. You're willing to have it be exactly the way it looks and exactly the way it doesn't look, because only reality is present.
Right.
And staying with that, I begin to enjoy that fact's presence as my everyday living.
Right. Right.
Yeah, it takes me right out of the victim role.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, very good. Okay. Well, that's all we have for today. And we will be on again next week, Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Pacific. And
I'll try to be on time next time.
right. And cross your fingers that there are no accidents before then.
You don't have to cross your fingers.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
No.
Anyways, thank you all for being here. And this was a good one. Go listen to it again because I'm going to do that as well. Anyways, we'll see you next week.